talk about who's done so much good work. So proud of his ascent into the big time from the NFL Network, South Philadelphia's own, the great Mike Garafolo. Mikey G, what's up, brother?
Is this my first time on the show? I think this is my first time on the show.
It is first of many, and I got to tell you, you're just killing it. You have become a mainstay on the biggest sport in America. So I couldn't be more proud of you, brother.
Well, listen, way back I was covering all four. I was covering college as well, and I think we've had conversations about, what's the best sport to cover, what's the one that suits my lifestyle and my interests and everything like that. I think I gravitated toward football, and I think the popularity of football since then, the NFL, which was 2002 to 4, I guess, when we had those conversations, has absolutely erupted. So, Indiana Jones, I chose wisely.
You did. I remember distinctly. We were probably in the parking lot around the corner from this studio. This studio's near 10th and Spring Garden, right? So,
oh, really? All right.
Yeah, right off of 5th and Spring Garden. And I remember you and I sitting there, and I remember talking about, you're like, dude, I don't know, what should I do? What should I take? Should I take the Giants? You were doing everything, and you love football. You're like, listen, football's the best beat to cover. And it is, because you can have a bit of a life. I covered, baseball and basketball, and you're just traveling all the time. It's too much, and football is the greatest of the beat life.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think it was also, what you do. You want it to register. You want it to matter. And I, for all that, I technically am an NFL employee, right? So what I'm saying is not blowing smoke, though, because for all we love to give the NFL a hard time, a lot of people, and we love to question some of the things that they're doing. And some of the things they're doing as far as the 18-game schedule, I'm not on board with. I'm not just going to sit here and say, like, oh, everything that they do is perfect. They've made mistakes over the years. I still think some of the things that they do are questionable. But what they have done to make this sport as popular as it is, they've made a number of ingenious decisions. I watch baseball all the time, and I just don't understand how they cannot grasp the idea of revenue sharing the way that the NFL has. And now you have the haves and the have-nots in baseball. I'm like, I just, how do you not understand what the NFL has done and what the NBA has done to a certain extent as well? It's just what they have done to make this sport the most popular sport in America. I agree with a whole lot of it.
Yeah, I do too. And I'll be honest with you. I hear you on the 18 games. It doesn't mean I don't love it, because it's just more football. I know. Want the double bye, and then I want the President's Day Super Bowl.
Oh, it's just I've already, well, first of all, the odd number of games I can't get over.
Right.
How 8-8 doesn't exist anymore. It's like 8-9 or 9-8. And, maybe there's a little bit of a, there's a decision. You're either on one side or the other. But the whole 8-8, in my mind, it's nice, it's even, it's clean. 9-8, 8-9 feels weird. You get to 18, there is an oversaturation point. I don't know where it is. I would have thought they would have gotten to it already. But these guys, you just watch what they go through. You watch how they put their bodies on the line. They watch how they put their minds on the line. It's a mentally exhausting game as much as it's a physically exhausting game. It's just like, and John Mara to me is one of the voice of reasons, right? Because these guys are all about, every time I ask, well, why is the NFL doing this? The answer is always the same: money. That's the answer. Why are they doing money? Well, why are they money? Okay. But John Mara understands that money is good and it's great and all that stuff, but there's also a product and a level of quality that you got to keep up. And he's been an advocate to keep it down to 16. He lost that battle, number one. And number two, the fan experience as well. He's all about that as well, which is why he was against the Monday flex and the Thursday flex and all that stuff. So there are voices in the room that agree with me, but they're not necessarily the majority voices all the time.
What happens? Were they with the for the international piece, the Brazil game? Are they? Do you like that?
No, I hated that. Matter of fact, I was angry at that one. To be honest with you, like you engage your fan base all off season, and you're pointing everything toward week one, and then your team's home opener is in another country that's never hosted a game before. Like if you did that game in week 4 or 5,
Right.
fine, okay.
Right.
But like the opener in Brazil, and I understand it's gonna be a great trip for people, and maybe the average viewer doesn't care. I mean, maybe he's sitting at home and watching the game. He or she is sitting at home watching the game, and it doesn't matter if it's played in Lambeau or it's played whatever that stadium is down there. But to me, it just like, why are we doing this week one on a Friday too? Right? It's still summer. It's that last gasp of Friday nights and Saturdays in the summer. Even though it's after Labor Day. I didn't love that one. We'll see how it winds up.
There's also, it was odd too to start the season. Like, yeah, why have that? That's bizarre.
And a lot of teams, you can't have. I remember Ron Rivera a couple of years ago was talking about when they played Denver after playing them in the Super Bowl, and he felt like when they played week one the following year, it derailed their season because so much went into that. I don't think you can really have that right now, especially when you added the 17th game. If you get to 18, I mean, how far away is the football and the time of year that matters from week one? So I'm not going to sit here and say one of these teams is going to lose the game and it's going to be an excuse for a bad season. But it's definitely something that's just a little bit awkward as you try to get off the ground to play again in a place. And I hear what some of the players are saying with regard to who was it that was on a podcast recently? I think it was on with Chris Long, talking about the colors that they're going to wear down there because you got to be careful. Did you see that?
No, but that's real. Like
I know
it really is real. In fact, I was at a conference and there was a woman from Sao Paulo there, and I was asking her about the colors, and she's like, "Yeah, the Palmeiras, the Palmos or whatever, they're the rival, and they wear green." And they're like,
yeah,
green is evil. Green's the devil in Sao Paulo, right? So the other day, you probably saw this, but someone down there, the tickets went on sale, and they had a picture of the stadium, and the Eagles' end zone is black. So my guess is the Eagles will wear their black jerseys.
Interesting. How about that? All right, that's some good detective work by you, brother. I love that. But yeah, let's put the Kelly Green Eagles and the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Let's put those
so it'll be gold and black. They'll be the color. Like they'll go. The Packers will be all gold. Oh my God, it's crazy.
I mean, we'll be kicking off on a Friday in Brazil, and you won't even recognize the two colors of the team. What are we doing?
I agree. Hey, let's talk. I have a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about the league, but I do want to ask you to start off with the Eagles. And there's the whole debate going on, the way Jalen answered a question last week, the end of minicamp, as far as does he have Sirianni's back? Did he want Sirianni back? There's all this stuff going on. There is a debate whether or not Sirianni should have been back as coach. I'm just wondering where you fall in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should. I don't think you get rid of any coach that close to a Super Bowl appearance. It's just it's crazy to me. But it's going to be important for him to get off to a fast start and to bring in these coordinators that he has with skins on the wall. But also, it did not end well for Kellen Moore in Dallas. His stint with the Chargers wasn't great. I don't know how much was him versus what else was going on down there or out there, I should say. And then Vic Fangio, you got the guys in Miami alluding to the fact that they just didn't like him at all down there. So these guys got to hit the ground running. They have to merge kind of offensively, particularly what they've done the last couple of years with some of these new ideas and not new, but fresh concepts in regard to bringing in a different voice as the offensive coordinator. So I think it's going to be big for him, for Sirianni, to make sure this coaching staff gets off the ground running. What Brandon Graham said recently with regard to the coaching last year, and certainly he's talking more about the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
But I think he wasn't oblivious to what was happening offensively either. Brandon Graham's been around as long as he has, and he understands what's happening there. So there's a lot to be said there, and there's the guys that are still there, obviously from last year, going to need to see that and get that confidence going early in the season.
The key, and again, Jalen, I think I don't want to say regressed because that feels like a strong word, but he didn't play as well as he did the year prior, whether that was Brian Johnson, whether that was the play calling, the whole thing. Baldy and I watch the tape we break down the tape for all these games. And I mean, his mechanics were not good. He was seeing a lot of ghosts. He was escaping the pocket way too quickly. His eyes were down, not up. A lot of bad habits he got into. And he's got to get buttoned up this year. He's going into year 5, basically, in this league. He's got to get buttoned up now.
If Brian Johnson were joining us right now and he were speaking freely, we gave him a nice dose of truth serum, he would tell you that some of this was on Jalen for sure. And because every coach, they spend the whole week doctoring up a game plan. And it's not like they come out of it and go, well, none of those were good ideas, right? It's just stuff didn't happen because this happened or this happened or this happened. And, hey, we talked about that all week. And why did this happen? So I'm sure that would be, if he was speaking the truth, his opinion on these things. But you're right. He wasn't trusting what he was seeing. And it's that lack of confidence I just talked about with Brandon Graham talking about this coaching staff. That's what you saw with this team. And the decision making and, the year before it was all about people don't give Jalen enough credit for what he does and what he sees. And he's coming in at halftime and he's ready with some halftime adjustments. A lot of times it happens between series on the sidelines, but he's coming back knowing what he saw and relaying that to the coaches. I don't think you saw that last year just with your own eyes watching it, saying, hey, that guy's coming off the field and he knows exactly what's happening. Matter of fact, he looked the opposite. He looked like he was confused about what was happening on the field.
Yeah, I'm curious. The whole idea of, with Sirianni, I thought the same thing. He had great success coming in. You got to give him a chance to rectify it and to save it, right? I mean, I argue with the guys here a lot, and they go, well, what's Sirianni do that's good? And I do think he's got good ideas. I think he's bright. I think he's a good CEO. I think he's got promising attributes as a coach. I did wish that he took over the play calling last year when things started to go south. I thought it was a big miss that he didn't step in and right the offense. I thought that was a mistake on his part.
He emphasizes the collaborative approach when it comes to play calling. So he's a little bit involved. And Kevin Patullo, another guy, the associate head coach, who Patullo is actually, he's been tasked with helping merge what Kellen Moore is bringing in, what he wants to do with what they've done the past couple of years and communicate that to Jalen Hurts and to the offense. So he's a big part of this that maybe we don't talk enough about.
Yeah, I agree.
Particularly as we get into 2024 and see what this offense can do. So, that's the way that Nick approaches it. And it's not a, which by the way, from day one, he never called, Steichen called plays from day one, if I'm recalling correctly. So
no,
Nick
he gave it up.
he's never been the play caller as he's been in Philly.
Well, he was early.
That's his
Remember,
approach.
He was for about 6 weeks, and then he gave up the play calling. His first year.
So Steichen didn't take it from week one?
No.
Sirianni
had it early, and listen, you're covering 30 teams,
No, I know. I thought he gave it. Yeah. So, and I think when they made that switch, it was like, well, this has kind of been how we've been doing things anyway. They played the collaborative approach back then to sell it as and Shane Steichen did a phenomenal job. I still go back to when Steichen was with the Chargers. Justin Herbert loved him.
Yeah.
And he wanted him to continue as the guy there. But Brandon Staley had a relationship with Joe Lombardi and wanted to bring him in. So Steichen then interviewed, I think, in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken, and then wound up in Philly. So He's a great offensive mind. He's a great play caller. I hope it works out for him in Indianapolis. They got a lot of stuff going on there. That's a whole other story. But as far as Nick and him as a head coach, I feel like the way that he coaches and his style and his competitiveness and everything we saw, the NFL films did a great thing about him growing up in that household where it was just nonstop competitiveness. It's gonna be it's gonna be the highs and lows, right? It's not gonna be here. So when I sit there a lot of times and see a team that falls apart the way the Eagles did down the stretch last year, I'll say, well, that guy's got to go. It's done. To me, it was almost kind of like, well, it was so high year one or year two, excuse me. It was so low at the end last year. It's somewhere in between if you average it out. So you would think that maybe it would get up there and get back up there quickly. So I'm with you. That's why I don't sit here and say, well, he needed to go, because I feel like you're going to kind of live with these highs and lows with him.
How heavy will the specter of Belichick be in places like Philadelphia, Dallas, the Giants, right? Like he mentioned those teams. Yeah. And so how that presence hovering, what kind of impact will that have?
Yeah. It's funny because I thought you were going to ask me about the Eagles. I was going to say it's hanging over the whole division. Well, 3/4 of the division anyway. So I agree with you. Yeah, that's going to be a big thing. And it's even a guy as accomplished as Bill Belichick. The best thing for him, the old joke is, what's the best thing for your career as a rock and roll singer? To die, right? Like right. That's.
Stones it's going to kind of last night.
Yeah, I heard Mick's killing it.
Killing it. Killing it.
My whole thing, I've had people have gone to see the Stones, and my whole thing with them is I just want to be awake at that hour at his age. That for him to then perform in front of 60,000 people. But for Belichick not coaching, you're going to forget about the stink of the last couple of years, and it's going to be, oh, this is the 6 ring guy. This is the guy that helped build that dynasty there. I thought, speaking of the dynasty, I thought the Apple show was just completely unfair. And Robert Kraft kind of washed his hands of it.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it was a Kraft production, and said, he didn't have any creative control. Whatever the case was, as I'm watching it, they win their first Super Bowl in that, and it's this like doomsday theme. And I'm like, they've got 5 more Super Bowls to go. And then they presented it before they beat the Rams as if it had already crumbled. I'm like, they still have 1 more Super Bowl to win.
I know. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So I think him being away and listen, him being on McAfee every week, which I think is a thing. I don't mean to roll my eyes. I'm just him being on McAfee is going to be as good for his career as anything else with regard to fan bases and clamoring for him. So, yeah, I think it's going to be huge.
Give me the 2 teams you really like in each conference that you go, you know what? These are my 2 favorites.
See, I always like what team is going to pop up that
out
maybe
of nowhere.
We're not.
Yeah.
Not out of nowhere, because they very rarely out of nowhere, but maybe we're not paying enough attention
on the rise.
I'm going Chargers. I think that's a layup for a number of reasons.
He's the best. He's the best coach. He'll get that thing right. He'll get that thing right. He's a great coach, man.
Yeah. And there's talent on the team too. Right?
Yes.
I understand they need a little bit of work on that roster, but there's talent, and they drafted guys that they know and they feel good about. So they'll get some contributions from rookies that we don't even know about yet.
And Mikey,
so I'm going.
I can't talk enough about him. I love Harbaugh. I do. I love. He is a great what he did at San Francisco. Like, we forget what he did at San Francisco.
Like that,
what he did at Stanford. Like, everywhere he goes, he knows how to win, and he wins football. Right? Like, he wins defense and run the ball.
Yeah. And he does it quickly. He gets these guys off the ground and gets them going quickly. So I'm going to take that layup there. In the NFC, I haven't really settled yet, but my candidates are Tampa Bay, which they made the divisional round last year, but I don't think we ever thought it. Like, they made the divisional round because they won a bad division. And they beat the Eagles, who were floundering at the time.
I'm not in love with them.
But I think that what's that?
I'm not in love with them.
I could see that. That's not your squad. That's not your quarterback, right? That's not your guy.
You know who I like. You know my quarterbacks. Like,
I
yeah,
know, I know, I know. Which is why I'm kind of like, is that really my team? But I also think the Rams. I think the
yes,
Rams have
yeah.
done a lot of work. That's your kind of quarterback. Uh, Rams have done a lot of work to get that offensive line back in order. Sean McVay recapturing the feel, the love, the passion last year. I think they're ready to hit that. That might wind up being my team.
And nobody, listen, they had another great draft, and they never have early picks, right? Like
Yeah,
nobody drafts as well as the Rams. It's unbelievable what they and
you
not
have
having
to.
first round picks for all those years, and they're getting Kyron Williams and Nakua, and they get one gem after another.
But you know what's funny? So and I'm not disagreeing with you at
Yeah,
all, okay? But sometimes I think about this and go, the teams that don't have the high picks sometimes, like they have to make these guys work, right? So do these guys flourish because they get more opportunities
Hmm.
than maybe some other guys, right? Or they're more invested in these guys. Like I'm not disagreeing with you, right?
right,
You
right,
still got
right.
to hit on the pick, but sometimes I think because the Seahawks for a number of years were that team. They were not
Yes,
afraid to deal.
yes,
They
yes,
traded their ones for Percy Harvin and the
yes.
likes of these guys, and it'd be like, oh well, but because they can hit on these guys. Well, they have to, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's a little bit of both because in this league when you draft guys and you spend as much in the process as you do, spend as much time, spend as much effort, energy in the process, nobody comes away with like a bomb of a draft. It's more about how you're developing these guys as you go forward. So it's not like they made the mistake a lot of times on draft night. It's what happened that followed that afterwards. So, but I agree with you. I think you got to have enough faith in a team that they can get those guys, but also develop them as well.
How good are the Packers? By the way, I like that
Um,
quarterback a lot.
Yeah, yeah, they're good. I mean, they're well coached. The quarterback we kept reading this on air. It would come up in copy or whatever, and I'd read it, and then I'd be like, "Is that right?" Jordan Love was second in the league in touchdown passes, and I'm like, every time I said it, I was like, "Is that like?" I'd have to go up and,
Wow.
oh, that's right. He was second in the league in touchdown passes last year. So you saw his confidence. You saw that swag in the playoffs. Certainly, they're going
And
to
they got
pay him
an
like a
array
top
of
quarterback.
weapons, man. Like they're
Yeah,
weapons. Like they're all young. They got just studs. And the Musgrave at tight
yeah.
end, like, damn.
So that was my team last year, right? Who's going to come up out of? And I felt
Good
awful about it
call.
after about 5 or 6 weeks. I was like, damn, I botched that one. But that was, yeah, the way that they played at the end of the season, it got you craving more. And he did it at the right time because, again, he's going to get paid coming up here, and he may very well get paid like Joe Burrow, if not above Joe
Yeah.
Burrow.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
may. Because if they don't, he'll say, well, I'm going to play it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to ball
Yeah.
out and I'm going to make even more next year. So as a team, you have to make that decision. Like, yeah, this may look silly to a lot of people. Like he's got 1 year under his belt and we're going to pay him as the top quarterback in the league. But if we wait and he hits, it's going to cost us even more.
Yep. Hey, real quick, just the division quickly. And thanks for joining us. What are they doing in Dallas? I don't understand the backfield. I don't understand their salary structure. Dak's going to be forced to do everything again, and then you're going to have to pay him. What's going on
Yeah.
there?
There's enough talent that they're going to be good enough. It's not like they're going, 4-13. They'll be in the mix. I feel like they could have done more to help themselves this offseason. Um, on the one hand, we're hearing that the Dak thing is just not going to happen contract wise. And then Jerry and Steven are saying, no, we're still, words mean one thing, offers and efforts to get something done mean another. And they just haven't been there to this point. So, that doesn't worry me as much if I'm the Cowboys because he played well in 2 contract years before. The 1 year before the franchise and the 1 year when he was, he got hurt that year, but he was off to an amazing start that year. So I don't worry too much about that. McCarthy has done a good job of blocking out. You have to, if you're the coach of the Cowboys from day one, you better be able to block out noise. So he's done a good job of that. But there's some dynamics with that locker room and these guys waiting to get paid, Micah Parsons. It's just something feels a little bit off there. So I have trouble in my mind seeing them getting to that elite level this upcoming season, but I think they'll be competitive. You said the division, the rest of the division. I am off. I have been wrong on the Giants the last 4 years. Every time I think they're going to be good, they're terrible. Every time I think they're going to be terrible, they wind up being better than I expected. So I'm just going to go along for the ride.
I don't like the quarterback. I've never liked the quarterback. I don't understand.
I'm with you.
I just don't get why they're married to him.
Especially because it's a new regime.
Yes.
And usually the new regime, as soon as they see a little keyhole of light and opening to get their own guy, they jump on the chance.
Especially that guy. He waited to get a big job. He's a good coach. I'm thinking he'd be stomping his feet looking for his quarterback.
Yeah. And I mean, they tried. They were making an effort with Washington and New England. Matter of fact, my understanding was they felt like there was some wiggle room with New England 2 weeks before the draft, and then kind of sort of got the rug pulled out. Not the rug pulled out from underneath it, but it was like, wait, we think we got them. Because New England from pretty early on was like, we're going to entertain all offers, but you're going to have to blow us away. And then for whatever reason, they sensed that this might happen, and then it just didn't happen for them, and New England stayed put. And at that point, I'm always torn when it comes to this, because I know I wouldn't want them to force it. If let's say I'm owning a team and the general man, I'm like, I don't want you to force it, right? And so when I was asked about what I thought what the Giants did, I said, well, if you're going to guarantee me that Joe Shane and Brian Dable are not going to get fired after this upcoming season, like if you told me under no circumstances they're getting fired, I'm fine with the draft. But if you told me that, well, we'll see what happens this year, then they probably should have forced themselves to get a quarterback at that point. And then with Washington, I think they're going to be tough. They're going to be a tough out, right, this year. They'll probably go around somewhere 7 and 10, 8 and 9. And they're just going to be the team that if you need a win late in the season, you're going up against them, you probably don't want to play. That's the way I kind of see those guys. So I think it's wide open at the top.
Yeah, I love Daniels. I do. I think Daniels can be something. Mikey G, we love you, buddy. Listen, God bless your girls. All right, happy Father's Day.
Thank you, buddy. Happy Father's Day to you. I hope you get an hour or so of appreciation. It's not going to be a whole day. You know how it goes. Like Mother's Day. Mother's Day is like the Olympics. There's opening ceremonies. It lasts a while. Just give me an hour. Just give me the length of a cigar right here. Okay, just give me that.
Give me 18 at U.S. Open, right? Like that's it. Oh man.
Listen. Last year we had the West Coast U.S. Open.
Yes,
that's the best.
That's
the best. Everybody's in bed. That's great. Yeah. Give me that.
Yeah, that was the greatest. I agree. That was the best. Anthony began his football workouts this morning for St. Augustine. He's graduating 8th grade tonight, and then he begins his workouts today. He's this morning. He's at camp.
I cannot wait for the first Baldy's breakdown of Anthony's. What position is he playing?
Linebacker, edge, and he plays tight end too.
If I don't see a Baldy's breakdown this upcoming season of Anthony's film, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Love you, brother. Thank you, pal.
Love you, pal. Happy Father's Day to you and all the fathers out there. What you do is not appreciated enough.
Amen, brother. Amen. The great Mike Garafolo, NFL Network. We love him. He is family.
We all silly like the mayor.